All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to tackle a really, really fundamental topic.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to get into this because, you and I both like to, learn things,
Yeah.
really quickly and thoroughly.
For sure.
But sometimes you got to step back and ask, like, how do we even know things?
Right.
What is the difference between believing something and knowing something?
Yeah.
So today we're going to be looking at the relationship between belief and knowledge.
Yeah.
Especially in the context of learning science.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got some pretty dense sources for this deep dive.
Yeah, we do.
But hopefully we can boil it down and make it fun for everybody.
Yeah.
We've got some stuff from educational psychology and even from philosophy, which is always exciting.
Always a good time.
So our mission today is to really try to figure out how these different fields, how they define belief, how they define knowledge, how they think they're different,
Yes.
how they think they're similar, and then ultimately how all of this impacts how we learn and understand science.
Exactly. So let's maybe start by going all the way back to the beginning,
Yeah.
back to the philosophical roots.
Right.
And one of the foundational figures that we have to talk about is Plato.
Okay. Yeah, definitely heard of him.
Yeah, Plato famously described knowledge as justified true belief.
Justified true belief.
Yeah, so already we're seeing these three essential components.
Okay.
Truth, belief, and then this extra element of justification.
Okay, so it can't just be something that I think is true. It has to actually be true.
Right, you can't just have a lucky guess and call it knowledge.
Right.
So this is where the justification comes in.
Okay.
And to illustrate this, Plato used the analogy of a true opinion versus knowledge.
Okay.
He said true opinions are like ships without anchors, just kind of drifting around.
They could be true, but like they're not tethered to anything.
Exactly. Whereas knowledge is that same truth, but
Yeah.
anchored down, tethered by reason.
So that's the justification.
Precisely. That tether is what makes knowledge stable and valuable.
Interesting.
And that's something that's really stuck with us even today.
Right.
This idea that we need to have a reason, a good justification for why we believe something is true.
It can't just be a feeling.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so then our source brings up this other concept called foundationalism.
Ah, yes.
It
Foundationalism.
sounds kind of like building a foundation for a house.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Like you need the base before you can build the rest of the house.
Exactly. Foundationalism is essentially this quest for the absolute bedrock of knowledge.
The unshakable truth.
Precisely. Those fundamental truths that don't rely on any other knowledge for their support.
So where do they think this foundation comes from?
Well, there were a couple different schools of thought.
Okay.
On the one hand, you had empiricists like David Hume.
Okay.
They believed that the foundation of knowledge was sensory experience, our direct experience of the world.
Okay, so like if I can see it, if I can touch it, if I can hear it, that's like the most basic level.
Right. Hume even challenged us to trace any idea back to its original sensory impression.
So like if you can't trace it back to some kind of sensory input,
Right.
it's not really knowledge.
He suggested it might not even be meaningful.
Wow, okay.
On the other hand, you had rationalists like René Descartes.
Okay, another big name.
Yeah, they believed that the foundation was in our minds in the form of clear and distinct ideas that we grasp through reason alone.
Okay, so kind of independent of like what we're seeing in the world.
Precisely. It's about the power of reason itself.
Okay.
And Descartes' famous "I think, therefore I am" is a classic example of this rationalist approach.
Okay, so it's almost like two completely different approaches to knowledge.
They were definitely fundamentally different in their approach.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that both of them were still operating within this framework of a knowing subject,
Okay.
a claim and a justification.
So like a person making a claim about the world and then justifying it.
Exactly. But our source then goes on to bring up a really important challenge to this individualistic view.
Oh, okay.
And that's the role of the community in the formation of knowledge.
Okay, so like knowledge isn't just something that exists in a single person's mind.
Right, especially in science. It's
Yeah.
very much a product of collective understanding.
Shared language, shared methods.
Exactly. Think about something like the metric system.
Okay, yeah, meters, liters, grams.
Right. That's not something that any one person discovered in isolation.
It's a system that everyone agrees on.
Precisely.
Okay.
And this brings us to another important figure, Karl Popper, and his idea of objectivist epistemology.
Objectivist epistemology. Okay.
Well, that's a pretty radical idea.
What is it?
Well, Popper basically said that knowledge can exist without a knowing subject.
Without a knowing subject. Hold on, what does that even mean?
Yeah, it sounds kind of strange.
Yeah.
But what he meant was that scientific knowledge exists in a realm of objective theories,
Okay.
problems, and arguments. That's separate from our own subjective beliefs.
So it's not about what I think or what you think.
Exactly.
It's about like something else.
It's about the objective truth of those theories and the problems they address.
So as an example, if I think the Earth is flat, that doesn't change the fact that it's actually round.
Precisely.
Okay, I see.
Popper called this realm of objective knowledge the third world.
The third world.
To distinguish it from the second world, which is our own subjective mental state.
Okay, so the first world is like the actual physical world.
Exactly.
The second world is our minds, and the third world is like this realm of knowledge.
Precisely. And for Popper, the growth of this objective knowledge was the central concern of epistemology.
Okay, so it's not so much about how individuals come to know things.
Right.
It's more about how this body of knowledge grows and evolves over time.
Exactly. And he used a really interesting example to illustrate this.
What's that?
The cycloid curve.
Cycloid curve. Okay.
It has this property called isochronism.
Isochronism.
Yeah, it basically means that a pendulum swinging along a cycloid path has a period that's independent of the amplitude.
Oh, wow, okay.
So whether the pendulum swings a little or a lot, it always takes the same amount of time to complete one cycle.
That's wild.
Yeah, and this fact about the cycloid curve
Right?
exists regardless of whether any human being understands it or even believes it.
So it's like an objective truth that's just out there waiting to be discovered.
Precisely, and that's what Popper was getting at with his idea of objective knowledge.
Okay, so we've gone from Plato's idea of justified true belief to the foundationalists' search for like the bedrock of knowledge,
Yeah.
to Popper's idea of knowledge existing independently of any individual mind.
Exactly. It's been quite a journey.
It has, and I'm guessing it's not over yet.
Definitely not, because now we need to shift gears a bit
Okay.
and move from the realm of pure philosophy to the more practical world of educational psychology.
Okay, so how do actual human beings actually learn? All
Exactly.
right, let's get practical.
So as we move into educational psychology, the focus shifts from these grand philosophical ideas
Yeah.
to a more empirical and scientific study of knowledge and beliefs
Okay.
as they actually function within people's minds.
Okay, so it's like less about the ideal and more about like how it actually works.
Precisely. It's a more human-centered approach.
Okay.
And educational psychologists are asking questions like,
Yeah.
how can we even define knowledge and belief in a way that we can actually study them?
Right, because it's kind of fuzzy.
Yeah, it can be quite tricky.
Yeah.
And they're also interested in how knowledge and beliefs influence our learning processes.
Okay, so how does what we already know impact what we're able to learn next?
Exactly. And also how it affects things like our memory.
Right, and even things like our behavior, I would imagine.
Absolutely. But before they can even study these things, they run into a fundamental problem:
Oh no, what's that?
defining knowledge and belief.
It seems like something that should be easy, but I'm guessing it's not.
Not at all. Our sources highlight this really well. Researchers like Alexander and Dochi,
Yeah.
they pointed out this lack of clear definitions in the field.
So how are you supposed to study something if you don't even know what it is?
Right. It's a real challenge.
Yeah.
And they even suggested that sometimes the terms knowledge and belief might be used almost interchangeably in the research.
Wow, so it's like this really fundamental ambiguity right at the heart of the field.
Yeah, and this ambiguity has led to some really interesting different approaches.
Okay, tell me more.
So Alexander and her colleagues actually proposed a very broad definition of knowledge.
Okay.
They essentially said that knowledge includes anything a person holds to be true.
Anything.
Yeah, so that includes facts, skills, experiences, even personal opinions and memories.
Wow, that's a pretty broad definition.
It is. It basically encompasses anything that a person considers to be true,
Okay.
regardless of whether it's actually true in some objective sense.
So it's more about the person's internal state.
Exactly. It's a very individual-centered definition.
Okay, so if I think that the moon is made of cheese,
Right.
that's part of my knowledge, even though it's completely wrong.
Exactly, because in that moment, you hold that belief to be true.
Okay, I see.
But of course, other educational psychologists have tried to maintain a clearer distinction.
Okay, how so?
They often align more closely with the philosophical view that knowledge requires some kind of justification.
Ah, okay, so we're back to that idea of the tether.
Exactly. Knowledge needs to be grounded in something more than just personal conviction.
Right.
And in contrast to knowledge, beliefs are seen as less rigorous.
Less tethered.
Exactly, and often more tied to our personal experiences and emotions.
Okay, so like a gut feeling might be considered a belief.
Right, and Schammer, for example, emphasized the emotional component of beliefs.
Okay, so beliefs are more emotionally charged.
That's one way to think about it, but as our source points out, this distinction isn't always so clear-cut.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Right, we can have strong feelings about things that we know to be true.
Like, I'm very passionate about the fact that the Earth is round.
Exactly.
And I can believe something that's incorrect without being particularly emotional about it.
Precisely. And Pinterich and other researchers criticized what they called the cold cognition view.
Cold cognition.
Yeah, this idea that our thinking is completely separate from our emotions.
Okay.
They argued that emotions and motivations actually play a crucial role in how we learn and how our understanding changes.
Okay, so emotions aren't just like this separate thing.
Right. They're deeply intertwined with our cognitive processes.
Interesting. And have researchers found evidence to support this?
Absolutely. Empirical research has shown that both our knowledge and our beliefs significantly influence how we understand and remember new information.
Okay, so both play a role.
Yes, and they also influence how resistant we are to changing our minds.
So if I already believe something really strongly,
Right?
it's going to be harder to convince me that I'm wrong.
Exactly, and researchers in conceptual change, like Vosniakou and Brew, have emphasized how both prior knowledge and beliefs can make it difficult to accept new ideas that challenge our current understanding.
So it's like we have these filters in our minds,
Yes.
and they're shaped by our knowledge and our beliefs.
Precisely, and those filters determine what we let in and what we block out.
Okay, and what about this study by Murphy and Alexander?
Yes, that's a really interesting one.
What'd they find?
They found that prior knowledge and prior beliefs can actually have opposite effects on our subsequent beliefs after we read persuasive texts.
Opposite effects.
Yeah, so depending on what you already know and believe, you might be more or less likely to change your mind after reading something that challenges your view.
Wow, so it's not just about how strongly you believe something.
Right.
It's also about the nature of your prior knowledge and beliefs.
Exactly, it's really complex.
It is.
And this leads to a really important question that Dole and Sinatra raised.
Okay.
They asked, if knowledge and beliefs have such similar effects on how we learn, does the psychological distinction between them even matter?
As much as the philosophical one.
Exactly. They suggested that maybe the key difference isn't in how they're represented in our minds,
Okay.
but in the warrants or justifications we hold for them.
So like the reasons why we believe something.
Precisely.
Okay, so it's like going back to Plato's tether.
Right. It's about the strength and nature of that tether.
So something I consider knowledge might be what you consider a belief.
Exactly.
If I have like solid evidence and reasoning to back it up,
Right.
while you might be relying more on like intuition or personal experience.
Precisely. So the key difference could be in the type and quality of the justifications.
Okay, so even if the information itself is the same,
Yeah.
the way we hold it in our minds might be different.
Right, depending on the reasons why we hold it to be true.
Interesting.
Yeah, it really highlights the complexity of this whole issue.
It does. Okay, so we've looked at philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
We've looked at educational psychology.
Yes.
And now let's turn our attention to science education.
Okay, so how does all of this play out in the classroom?
Exactly. Like, how do teachers think about this distinction between belief and knowledge?
Right, and how does it impact how they teach science?
Okay, let's dig in.
So, unsurprisingly, the influence of both foundationalism and objectivist epistemologies is pretty strong in traditional science education.
Okay, so that idea of objective truth.
Yeah.
And like building knowledge on a solid foundation.
Precisely.
Yep.
So there's often been this tendency to present scientific knowledge as this objective, almost unquestionable body of facts.
Like the capital T truth.
Right, in contrast to beliefs, which are often seen as more subjective and personal,
Okay.
and maybe less grounded in solid evidence.
It was like science is on one side and beliefs are on the other.
Yeah, and Guess Newsom, for example, offered this classic distinction.
Okay.
She characterized knowledge as being evidential, dynamic, emotionally neutral, and structured,
Okay.
while belief was described as being potentially non-evidential, static, emotionally bound, and developed more episodically.
So knowledge is like this organized system. And belief is more like these individual things that we pick up along the way.
Yeah, that's one way to think about it, but this distinction isn't without its problems.
Okay, what kind of problems?
Well, for starters, the idea that scientific knowledge is emotionally neutral feels a bit outdated.
Yeah, I mean, scientists are people too. They have
Exactly.
passions, they get excited about discoveries.
Precisely. Science is a very human endeavor.
Yeah.
And the idea that scientific knowledge is completely static also doesn't quite fit with the reality of science.
Right, science is constantly changing.
Exactly. New discoveries are made all the time.
Yeah, old theories get revised.
Precisely. It's a dynamic process.
Okay.
And this leads us to a really important perspective called fallibilism.
Fallibilism, okay.
Yeah, it's a view that was championed by thinkers like Siegel and Matthews.
Okay.
And it basically acknowledges that our scientific knowledge is always provisional.
Provisional.
Yeah, meaning it's always open to revision in light of new evidence or better explanation.
Okay, so we can't be 100% certain about anything.
Right. Absolute certainty isn't a prerequisite for something to be considered scientific knowledge.
Yeah.
But it also maintains that we can still make judgments about which explanations are better supported by the evidence.
So it's not like anything goes.
No, not at all.
It's about having the best current understanding based on what we know.
Exactly.
Yep.
And within this fallibilist framework, the distinction between knowledge and belief remains important.
Okay.
Knowledge is seen as the best current description of reality,
Okay.
supported by objective justification.
Okay.
Whereas belief is more personal and subjective.
Okay, so it might be based on things other than evidence.
Right. It could be rooted in personal experience, intuition, or even cultural norms.
Okay, so it's not necessarily grounded in the same way that scientific knowledge is?
Exactly. And this distinction is especially important when we consider controversial topics in science education.
Like evolution.
Exactly. Evolution is a great example.
Okay.
Because you have the scientific explanation for how species change over time.
Right, based on tons of evidence, and then you have creationism.
Yeah, which is often presented as a belief system
Right.
based on faith or religious doctrine.
Okay, so how do science educators navigate this?
Well, one thing that's really important is the language that we use.
Okay.
Smith, for example, argued for a clear distinction between belief and acceptance in the context of science.
Okay, so what's the difference?
Well, the term belief can sometimes carry connotations of doubt,
Okay.
or it can be easily conflated with religious faith,
Right.
whereas acceptance implies a more reasoned judgment
Okay.
based on a careful evaluation of the evidence.
So, like, accepting the theory of evolution doesn't mean I have to, like, believe in it in a religious sense.
Exactly. It means I've looked at the evidence and I've concluded that this is the best explanation we have
Right.
based on the current data.
Okay, that makes sense.
And this has important implications for how we teach science.
Okay.
A lot of educators argue that the goal should be to foster understanding.
Of the
Exactly, not necessarily to force students to believe or accept something.
Especially if it conflicts with their personal beliefs.
Exactly, because trying to force belief can backfire.
Yeah, it can feel like indoctrination.
Right, and it can actually make students more resistant to learning the science.
Okay, so understanding over belief.
That's the idea, but of course not everyone agrees.
Oh, really?
Yeah, our sources point out that some educators believe the goal should be to actively challenge and replace scientifically inaccurate ideas.
So, like, to actively try to change students' beliefs.
Yeah, some argue that it's essential for students to reject non-scientific beliefs.
Okay, so there's a real debate here.
Yeah, there's a tension between wanting to promote scientific literacy and critical thinking,
Right.
while also wanting to make sure that students understand the correct scientific explanations.
It's like, how do you balance respect for individual beliefs
Right.
with the importance of teaching accurate science?
Exactly. It's a really tricky issue. And it's interesting to note that the authors of our source material, they seem to reject the idea that science and religious belief are incompatible.
Okay, so they see them as potentially coexisting.
Yeah, they emphasize the importance of respecting different domains of knowledge.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and it's also interesting to note how the term belief is used in science education research.
Okay.
Sometimes it's used interchangeably with alternative conception or misconception.
So, like, when students have ideas that are scientifically inaccurate.
Right, but other times it's used to suggest a more deeply held idea
Okay.
that might have non-empirical roots.
Okay, so it's not always clear what researchers mean when they use the term belief.
Right, and this inconsistency reflects the underlying complexity of this whole issue.
Yeah, it's not as simple as just saying belief is bad and knowledge is good.
Exactly, it's much more nuanced than that.
Okay, so we've talked about foundationalism, objectivism, fallibilism. Is there anything else we need to cover?
Yeah, there's one more perspective we need to talk about, and that's radical constructivism.
Radical constructivism. Okay, this sounds intense.
Yeah, it's a pretty radical view.
What is it?
Well, radical constructivists essentially blur the lines between knowledge and belief.
Blur the lines. How so?
They argue that we don't have direct access to an objective reality.
Okay.
So all of our understanding, including what we call knowledge,
Yeah.
is constructed in our own minds
Okay.
based on our individual experiences and interpretations.
So even scientific knowledge is subjective in a way.
That's what they're saying.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And because of this, they say the distinction between knowledge and belief becomes pretty meaningless.
So they're basically the same thing.
Yeah, they're both constructions of our minds.
Okay, I see.
And Coburn, who's a big name in radical constructivism,
Yeah.
he argues that dismissing students' beliefs in science education is counterproductive.
Okay, why is that?
Well, he says that students have reasons for their beliefs.
Even if those reasons aren't scientific.
Exactly. They might be based on personal experience, cultural background, or religious faith. And if we just dismiss those beliefs out of hand,
Yeah.
we're not really respecting the students.
And we're probably not going to be very effective at teaching them science.
Exactly. Because they're going to feel like their views aren't being heard.
Right. It's like we're telling them that their beliefs are wrong without even trying to understand them.
Exactly. And that can lead to them becoming more resistant to science.
Okay, so how do we address this?
Well, Coburn suggests that we need to acknowledge and respect students' beliefs,
Okay.
even if we disagree with them.
And then try to build on those beliefs.
Exactly, to help students construct new understandings that are more aligned with scientific ideas.
Okay, so it's more about guiding than dictating.
Precisely. But of course, not everyone agrees with the radical constructivist view.
Right. The fallibilists probably have something to say about this.
Yeah, they would definitely push back.
How so?
Well, they would say that while all knowledge might be fallible to some degree,
Yeah.
the type of justification used in science is still fundamentally different from the justifications that underpin many other beliefs.
So it's not just about the degree of certainty.
Right.
It's about the way we arrive at that certainty.
Exactly. And they would argue that the belief that the Earth is round
Yeah.
has a very different kind of support than the belief in, say, the existence of God.
Okay, so the warrants are different.
Precisely.
Even if both are considered beliefs in the radical constructivist sense.
Exactly. So the fallibilists would say that we need to maintain that distinction.
Between scientific knowledge and other types of beliefs.
Yes, because they see science as having a unique methodology.
Right, based on evidence and reasoning.
Exactly. And they also acknowledge the limitations of science.
Okay, like science can't answer every question.
Right. It's not a magical solution to all of our problems.
Okay, so where does that leave us?
Well, it leaves us with a lot to think about.
Yeah, this has been a really thought-provoking deep dive.
It has, and just when you think we've covered everything,
There's always more.
our source brings up one more wrinkle.
Okay, what's that?
Research on teacher thinking.
Okay.
And how teachers themselves view this distinction between belief and knowledge.
All right, let's hear it.
So it turns out that teachers often use the terms belief and knowledge pretty interchangeably.
Really?
Yeah, and this isn't necessarily because they're embracing a radical constructivist view.
Okay.
It's more because in the day-to-day reality of the classroom,
Yeah.
it's really hard to separate the two.
Okay, so like a teacher's knowledge about how to teach effectively
Right.
is often based on their own personal experiences.
Exactly. And those experiences are shaped by their beliefs.
Okay, so their knowledge is kind of intertwined with their beliefs.
Yeah, and it's all filtered through their own unique personalities and perspectives.
Right, so it's not surprising that the terms sometimes get used interchangeably.
Yeah, it's more about practicality than philosophy.
Okay, so after this whirlwind tour of philosophy, educational psychology, and science education, what's the takeaway?
Well, I think the main takeaway is that the relationship between belief and knowledge is complex.
Yeah, very complex.
There's no easy answer.
And it seems like there's no one right way to think about it.
Exactly. Different fields have different perspectives.
And even within those fields, there's a lot of debate.
Precisely. But I think that's what makes this topic so fascinating.
Yeah, it really gets to the heart of what it means to know something.
Absolutely. And for our listener who's always eager to learn and understand,
Yeah.
I think this deep dive highlights the importance of being aware of these different perspectives.
Right, because the words know and believe get thrown around a lot,
They do.
but we don't always stop to think about what they really mean.
Right. And understanding those nuances is crucial.
especially when we're trying to navigate the complex world of information.
Absolutely. So this brings us to our final thought for the listener.
Okay.
We'd like you to think back to a time when your understanding of something significant changed.
Like a time when you had a real aha moment.
Exactly.
Okay.
What caused that shift in your thinking?
Yeah, what was the catalyst?
And what role did your existing beliefs play?
Right. Did they make it easier or harder to change your mind?
Exactly. And ultimately, what kind of tether led to that change in your understanding?
That's a great question to ponder.
It is. And we encourage you to reflect on the different perspectives we've discussed today.
Yeah.
And consider how they might influence your own approach to learning and evaluating information.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the complex world of belief and knowledge.
It's been a pleasure.